Hi and welcome to the first tutorial showing you how to set up a basic Microsoft Access database for your Management Information Systems and Business Information System modules. Now, I've spoken to some of you with regards to your actual initial data. You will need to pull this initial data together so that you know exactly what you're going to be putting into your table, but you can use this as an example or as a step-by-step guide to show you how to set up those fundamentals. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some sort of data off the top of my head just to try and show the examples and the functionality within Microsoft Access. So this has been done within Microsoft Access 2010. As you can see, opening it up, you come to your main dashboard. I'm going to change the name, example, example database. I'm just going to store it on my documents for the time being, and then I'm going to create, so I didn't need to touch anything else. Microsoft Access will set everything else up itself, so you can see exactly that on the screen. See that I've got a table on the left hand side there, which automatically opens a table. So I'm going to show you how to create a table, put some sample data in, and show you how to create the relationships between those particular tables. And then we'll move this move through the development. Again, this is very basic, and you need to watch this in order to imagine how that's going to fit around your database. It's how it's going to fit around the data that you've got, and how to build your database around that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the design of this table. It'll automatically ask me to save it, so I'm going to put I'm going to just do a student table. So I'm going to TBL underscore, and now naming conventions are as this, so TBL underscore because it's a table, and I'll explain a little bit later into the detail of why we do that. But TBL is for table, so table students. Okay, so you'll see it'll take you into the design mode of that particular table. So we're talking about primary keys earlier on, or we have sort of looked at primary keys, certainly in some of the emails that I've sent out to you. So what I'm going to put in here is I'm going to put student name, actually hang on a second, I'll just leave that because it's going to be the student table. I can take that out. So name, address, sorry I pressed the wrong button, date of birth for example. Okay, so in here you can change these to anything that you want, but to be perfectly honest, when they come into it as text, that's fine. So text for name, text for address, text for date of birth. Now I know there are numbers within date of birth, but the reason why we'll put them in as text is because we're not actually going to be calculating with them. If it was something like salary, or it was number of students on a particular cohort, or number of qualifications or something like that, and we're going to be adding those up as part of a query, then we would have them in as number. But other than that, if you're not using them as part of some sort of adding functionality that you may put in later on, we'll leave them in as text. Okay, so I would have change the name of that to student ID, and it says auto number, and you're always going to have an auto number put in when it's got the primary key, but I would try and come away from using auto number, because if I'm going to have student ID, I don't just want this particular database to pick up random numbers from anywhere. You have a unique student ID number which has been identified through another system. If we're going to create a second system, we need to keep in sync with those particular student numbers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to change that to text. Okay, I'm not going to be calculating using a student number, I'm not going to be adding things up, so I need to make sure that I've got it down there as text, so that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to save the table, as you can see there, and then I can close that table down, so you can see I've got table students in there. Brilliant. If I double click on this table, the student there, I can now put in some data. So I'm going to enter some data in there. So 1 2 3 4 5, student name Rob, I don't know, Rye Hill, date of birth, I don't know, we'll put in 23 03 65. Okay, so put that in there. If I want to add another one in, I can press enter. 2 3 4 5 6, and put in there I don't know, Simon. He could be at work, and he could be 22nd of the 10th 54. And then as we go through this, we could add more and more and more and more and more, depending on what you want to do. So 3 5 6 7 8. Mary, and she could be at Sandyford. Okay, and she's 11th of the I don't know, 12th 99. Okay, so we've got that's entering your data in there. There are various different ways you can enter data into these tables, but we'll just, for this example, I'm specifically looking at that. So great, save the data up in the top left hand corner, and then we can close that table down. Great. So for this particular example, I'm going to have a second one. I'm going to have courses. So I'm going to work out what course they're on. So I'm going to create. I can go into table, and there's my new table. So we're back to the original bit we were before. So I'm going to click on save, and I'm going to call this TBL underscore course. Click on OK. Great. So there's my table course. I want to go into the design of it. I'm going to change that to course ID. I'm going to have a unique identifier for that course ID anyway, so that can be text. I'm going to have title. Oh, I'll tell you what. Course ID. Sorry, that's me pressing the wrong buttons. I know. Not that a text. Course name. And then, well, we can leave it at that. That's fine. So course name. So I can save that. I can then go into that view option in that top left hand corner will give you either go into a datasheet view where you can enter the data, or you can go into design view where you can actually design the table so you can change, add columns, do whatever you need to. So for this I'm going to put in I don't know, course ID is 12, and let's say it's computing. Okay, and then we're going to put in course well, let's be 13, and let's put in health and enterprise, something like that. Okay, let's move that so we can see. And add another one in 14 science. I'll tell you what, we'll just adjust that. What else that makes it so we got goes into that, yeah, health. Okay, so we've got three that are in there. Brilliant. So again, save, and we'll close that down. So we've got two tables, one table course, and one table students. Now we need to create a relational link between these two to work out which student is on which course. In order to do that, we will identify primary keys, but also then foreign keys within another table. So a primary key is a unique identifier within one table. A foreign key is the unique identifier of in another table. So the primary key in another table that is linked to. So we need to put a foreign key in one of these tables. So for this particular example, you're going to need to put the foreign key, so course ID, within the students table in order to create a link between the two, so you can see exactly what course a particular person is. Rather than writing if Rob, Simon and Mary were all on computing, you would have to write computing within these bits that are down here. But in order to reduce the amount of data that's stored, and to eradicate duplication or reduce it as much as you can, we will use the numbers. So we will use the primary key that's in there. Okay, so to show you that, we're going to go into the design of the table, and I'm going to put in here, so I'm going to insert a row, I'm going to keep all the IDs together, I'm going to put course ID, and that's going to be text. Now it needs to be the same as the ID that's in that field, so that it can have a link between the two. You can't have auto number, or sorry, rather number and text, because it won't be able to understand the different types. So they need to be the same data type when you're linking these two together. So that's great. So again, save that up, and I'm going to go back into the data. So now I should have course ID in here. Now course IDs are 12, 13 and 14. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference them. So 12, 13, I'll tell you what, I'll put another 12 in. So when we look at this, Rob and Mary should be on computing, and Simon should be on health. We don't have any students who are currently on science. Yeah. So now we've got a link between there, but we haven't got the physical link. So we've got an imaginary link between them, a planned link, but we need to get a physical link between the two. So in order to do that, we will go into database tools and click on the option of relationships. Okay, so there it says define how the data in tables is related. So what we're going to do is select both of the tables, so you press shift and then select and then add. Close that down. So there we go. We have primary key course ID, primary key student ID, we've got course name, and then obviously all of the other related attributes within that table, because these are the attributes of your table. In order to create that relationship, now if I go back and remember, it should be course ID, yep, so between tables and the students. I should then be able to go course ID to course ID. Now I'm left clicking on the mouse and I'm dragging it, so I've got that little box with a plus on it, and I'm going to let go. You can see that it brings up an edit relationships box. Course ID, that's right, because they're the two that I'm linking together. So I want to enforce referential integrity. In order to enforce the reason why, I am enforcing the referential integrity is because I want to be able to cascade updated related fields and cascade deleted related fields. So that means any data that is either updated in the students table or in the course table with reference to that relationship will be mirrored. So if I delete a course title, it will be deleted in the other table. If I amend a course, it'll remind me on that there's actually a link here. So rather than the data then becoming very much mismatched when we've been trying to make it very much matched. Okay, so I'm going to click on cascaded updated related fields, and I'm going to click on cascaded deleted related fields. I'm going to create the link. Oh, because I've got, sorry, there's a one you'll have. So I'll create that, I'll do that again. Database engine could not lock table because it's already in use by another program. Once you actually do this, make sure that you shut the tables down. As you can see, I still forget to do that. So again, go back, course, box, left click, drag, enforce referential integrity, cascade updated related fields, cascade delete related fields. Create. Now you'll see there's a relationship now, a physical relationship between these two tables. So what you can see is there's a 1 there, and there's 2 little circles. That means 1 as in one course, and that little symbol means many. So one course, if you read this out as in you would in English, one course could have many students. Well, that's right. So for this particular example, one course could have many students. Well, that works for me. So, done with the relationships. That's brilliant. So I've now created my table, 2 tables rather, 1 course, 1 students. I've identified primary keys in each of them. So I'm going to close that out of the way. Yes, I want to save it. So I've identified primary keys in each of them. There. And then what I've done is I've created a foreign key field which will link the 2 tables together so that I know what course that particular student's on. So if we go into table course, you'll see there's a little plus box has appeared on the left hand side. If I open that, it'll tell me there's a relationship there. So Rob and Mary are on computing, which is right because that's what we stated before. Health, Simon's on health. See if there's anybody on science. No, there's nobody on science at the moment. So now we've created a relationship between two tables using primary keys and foreign keys. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to save that bit down. So I can actually close that out now and close that out. The next part of this is all about sort of using, again, this is a very short example, a very basic example of what you're going to be doing. In order to be able to analyze your data, so I can go into those tables as I did before, click on that one, and I can open up and I can see who's on there, but that's really not aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't look good. It's alright for me looking at it because then I can tell. But if you were going to display this, or you wanted to search and you see you had reams of data, certainly a lot more data than you've got in this table, you'll want to create something called a query. So I'm going to move over to the query. So we can use query wizards. I'm happy for you to use the wizard, that's fine. And we're going to just stick with simple query wizard. So click on OK. So up it pops. What table do you want to use? So do I want to use table? Which, you know, what am I actually doing here? Well, for this particular query, I might want to use both. But I'm going to go double click. I'm going to have all of the IDs over. I'm going to click on the students and I'm going to throw all of those over as well. So I've got both of the tables in here. Next. That's fine. Yep. Details in there. I'm going to rename this. Naming conventions again, as I mentioned before. QR. Whoops. Y. So take the query off the end. So query course. Yeah. Happy with that? Finish. Now immediately it'll come up with the data table. So basically all it's done is it's put all of the data that I've requested into a query. Fine. Doesn't look that great still. So I'm going to go into view and you can see that I have table course and table students in there. I can rearrange all of the items that are in here. I can move them around, do whatever I feel. And I can also get rid of them. So I can edit if I want to do. So if I didn't want a course ID, and I could get rid of it. So delete out of there. I might not want the student ID, but I might want to move the student ID over there. So just left click and drag, move it around the place. So in order to demonstrate this, I can then run it again. See, I've got student ID, course name, table student. That's from the table student, but it's actually the ID that's in there. Then the name, address, date of birth. So we're still merging these together. In order to design it properly, if I take out, I might want to take out this one. And then run it again. Now it's starting to look a little bit better. So I'm running a query. I'm not creating duplication because I'm querying the data that's in there. And it's now giving me computing the student ID, Rob, Rye Hill, and that's the date of birth. Brilliant. So that makes it a little bit more readable. So how you can develop queries in order to produce data that you can analyze. Within that query, I could also be specific and start and put criteria in. So the little line that's there, the little row that's along there, if I wanted to put in, say, I wanted to look for all of the students who were on computing only, and I didn't want to see anything else, I would put in computing. Click off it, and it'll put 2 speech marks around it because it knows this is a search criteria, and then I can run it again. And there you would see computing. So Simon, who's on health, isn't there anymore because now this has changed. This is a query course which I may save, close it down. I might rename it now because then that's going to be, so this is query course computing. So this is all of the students who are on computing. If I want to add more in, it'll automatically update as it goes on. So we're starting to analyze that very small amount of data using the relationships that we've already created, because remember that student ID and the course name, they're in totally different tables, but we're starting to build this simple database as we're going forward. So 2 tables now built, and then we've got a query built on top of that as well. The next part of this, because I can see the query, which is great, but in order to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing again, shall I say, we're going to create a form in the next session, and we're going to create a report, and you'll see how these things work. If you've got any questions on these, email me. Just drop me an email, rob.wraith@ncl-coll.ac.uk, and I'm more than happy to go through the videos or answer your questions on an individual basis. But that's the first part of it. After that, I will start building, as I said before, forms and reports.